All right, so good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our hashtag Wednesday webinars. We've had a lot of fun doing these over the last several months, and I feel like we've covered a ton of ground, right? I think we've had very technical talks. We've had, non-technical talks, and I think today's was kind of, spot on. I know Mike had reached out to Jasmine and said, hey, let's have this conversation, and I think this is really kind of the vibe and that we're trying to go for. So I do want to take a few seconds. I want to set the stage of really what we hope to take from today. So about 2 weeks ago, I recorded a podcast. Shameless plug for our podcast. Level Up Cyber is that. The podcast I recorded was cybersecurity skills that pay the bills, right? We've been at this now for 5 years. And I think we've probably have talked to hundreds of people within this. And we'll mute or kick said iPhone person. Let's remove. See you later. Gotta love Zoom. So with that being said, recorded a podcast, cybersecurity skills to pay the bills. The idea is that we've had hundreds of people that have come into our program or talked to us and said, how do I do this? How do I get into the field? What's the right path? What should I be doing on my end to be successful? Awesome. What things should I be doing to get my skills? And there's really not a silver bullet, right? I think that's probably the thing that I would recommend to everybody. There's not an easy pathway. There's not a 30-day get skinny quick. There's no pill or anything that's gonna magically.
C'est pas ta ligne qui l'a amené à 30%.
Influencer, on le connaît maintenant, ce sont les événements qui ont influencé positif. Voilà.
So let's try this again. Holy shnikes. So there's not an easy 30-day fix to get into this space and to try to do it. So I feel like Jasmine is a true testament of what you need to do to get into the space, finding the right path, the right resources between the networking, mentorship, and really find a job. So we're going to simply have a nice simple conversation today, talking about what things we should be doing, what advice you would give to somebody who is listening to this of how they would be able to pursue a career within the industry. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Jasmine Owens. She is a friend, right? She's been hanging out with us. I'm trying to think of how many years now, 4 years. I had the pleasure of meeting Jasmine through our program, and then she wound up coming to work for us and spend a year with CyberUp, and then has since gone on to do really great things. So I'm not gonna steal her thunder. Jasmine, thanks for joining us. My first question to you would be, now that you have your job, what is the one thing that you think helps you get to be successful or to where you're at today?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is knowing your why. Why I came to cybersecurity, why I wanted to work in the field has been probably the thing that has driven me the most to stay in through life's challenges and different obstacles that came my way to get to this place in my position at CAS and in my cybersecurity journey. So I'll start with the why. My why was a passion to protect the people that I care about, my family, my friends, my community. I started this journey back really when I was working at Washington University as the support to our medical records online. And the question I kept getting from patients was, how are you keeping my information secure? And I couldn't answer that I couldn't answer that question because our servers were separated from the vendor we were using, and I couldn't get deep dive into how we were protecting their medical records. And so that's where cybersecurity started really turning over in my head, like, okay, this may be a thing or a field I need to look into, and it grew from there. But the main course is I want to keep my community safe, and how can I do that in a way that I will enjoy it? So that's the core of it.
Along the way, I know mentorship has been a big part of, you know, your journey. What nuggets of advice would you give to folks that are looking at this from jump, you know, in regards to just mentorship of how they could find or what they should be doing to find somebody to kind of help navigate that career, you know, that space?
I would say, first thing, don't limit yourself to just one mentor. Having multiple mentors has been helpful for me in this journey. I started off with Chris Hogan. My supervisor now, Erica Wilson, has been a mentor. I got mentors from the military side as well. So really just bouncing off of those group of individuals. And also for the females, you know, don't be scared to have a male mentor as well as along with the female mentor, because they give you that different perspective. As being the minority in this space, not just because I'm African American, but also as a female, I need the different point of view from my male perspective, my male counterparts. So when I'm thinking they're just being, you know, they're being difficult, I could go to that male point of view, but like, okay, are they being difficult, or they just not realizing what they're doing, you know? And so having multiple mentors in this space, and don't be afraid to just go and ask, you know, hey, would you mind being my mentor? Or just have that coffee date, you know, can I get 15 minutes of your time and buy them coffee and just sit down and talk some things through, and always stay up to date with them, you know, check in with them from time to time, just so they know where you are and how they can assist in that area if they need to. But yeah, those are the things that come to mind.
I know when we have, you know, coaching sessions with candidates, the one kind of big point I usually point out around the mentorship is that that person is mentoring you, but you as the mentee actually own that relationship. The people you mentioned who are your mentors, they're all busy, right? Erica, who's with us today, like she's a really, really busy person, you know, so if she's carving out 30 minutes to an hour to spend with you for advice, come with an agenda, come with some goals, come with some things that you want to discuss, and really be mindful of that time and just maximize that and minimize the amount of extra work on those individuals, right? Because they're probably jumping from, you know, very different subjects into spending that time with you. So the easier you make it for that person, for that mentor relationship, it's going to go a long way.
Yes.
You know, on the mentorship side, you know, the piece that I know within just finding jobs, right? I mean, once you're in, and I feel like this is like, it's I don't want to say it's a club, but once you're in, right? Like finding Eric, you know, who's on the call, him and I were chit-chatting, right? As a country, we've done a really, really bang up job of addressing the skills gap, right? There are tons of ways that somebody can gain skills. You know, if we pare it down just even to St. Louis or even national, you've got community colleges, 4-year degrees, you've got boot camps, you've got pay to pay, you know, go get a certification in 40 hours, you've got apprenticeship programs, right? There's a multitude of ways for somebody to get skills. Now you have that, and now you've got to go beat the computer, right? You got to beat the KSAs, you got to get past the HR screening, and there are check boxes, right? And it's become a fairly common practice, especially for large organizations. Like everybody loves MasterCard, right? I feel like in the St. Louis market, like MasterCard's like the Mecca where everybody wants to land. So they're getting 300 applications for one job, and the HR folks are just trying to screen out who doesn't even meet the requirements. So those mentor relationships become very, very important to help get you, you know, maybe past that to get to an interview and actually have an opportunity to talk about the skills and attributes you're bringing to the job. So that's just another kind of step into that. were you doing any like extracurriculars like meetups and going to those type of things to really kind of embed yourself into the space as well?
Most definitely. Networking is a big factor in this field. Getting your name out there, and also seeing that you have the aptitude to learn by going to the Cyber STL meetups, by going to the OWASP meetups, by going to just different events in cybersecurity in the region. I remember even with my first week with you guys, my Friday of the first week, I was at CyberCon, you know, networking with the students and the people there. So that helps build out your community, your cybersecurity community. And there you can also go to those people that you see on a regular. They start to know you by face and know you by name, and you get to lean on them and ask them questions. You also can get some mentorship from them, like peer-to-peer mentorship, and you guys can, you know, change notes on certain things, or get encouragement, or hear about something else, or they keep you in the loop about another event that's coming. So networking was real huge in the beginning of my journey in cybersecurity, and I still believe it's a big part of my journey, keeping that networking opportunities going, because you don't want to cut off those relationships, because you never know when you're going to need those relationships down the road. So you always try to keep in contact with the people you meet along the journey, just to make sure that there's still an open line of communication between you and them, and say, hey, I'm here for you and you're here for me. So I always try to find, even though I know we're probably over the Zoom culture, video chats and everything else, but always trying to find something to plug into, just to talk with other people in the field, make a new connection, make new relationships. And then, you know, once the economy opens back up, I mean, get out there, go and meet those people face to face, and, you know, just let them know that, hey, I'm here for you, you're here, you know, hopefully you're here for me, and then let's learn on this journey together. You know, it always helps when you have a community or a tribe go along with you in the journey.
I know, you know, I'm from being past military, you know, a thing for me is, you know, that was the teamwork and camaraderie was huge. And out of all the jobs I've had since I've been out of the military, this industry or sector emulates the military the most, because it is a family. People want to see other people be successful. There's a massive shortage and availability of talent, and those that are taking an interest in others, like, they're working 10 times harder than they probably want to, you know, and their burnout is, there's tons of research on just infosec burnout, the hours. So they want people to be successful. So like that levels out on their end, right? So I mean that, we'll do a quote from somebody here in the Zoom, you know, networking is your superpower. Get out, meet people, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think it's not a normal human tendency to think, hey, I want to go and ask this person if they'll give me advice and help. But it definitely can be a very valuable thing to be able to do it.
Shout out to Miss Keisha.
So next question, and we're going to jump into some more random subjects, right? Because you and I had many moments of doing outreach and things. So I want to dive into some of that stuff too. But you know, what do you think was maybe the one thing that really helped give you, I'm gonna phrase the question better, I'm stammering over myself. I know we're finding confidence gap as a thing, right? There's also a lot of research that as people, you know, pick one of their pathways into skills, that there's a lot of confidence lacking of confidence. There's this idea that I really can't do this, you know, or I shouldn't be here. Did you have that moment, you know, in yourself, you know, and what advice would you give to somebody who's having that?
So I could tell you I had that moment interviewing for CAS, and let me set the stage for you. I think it was the day after we had like my going away lunch, and that evening I was going to have my interview with CAS, and when I get there, I see there's like 5 to 6 other individuals in the lobby waiting to go to the same room that I was about to go into. One of them happened to be one of our apprentices that were on the roster waiting for their turn for their apprenticeship. So I already knew his pedigree. And I'm walking into the room, I'm with the peers that I'm essentially competing against. And I see my CIO, I see all the VPs of the divisions that I'll be working under. I see HR and administrator, and we're all at one table. No pressure, right? So I'm there. I'm a person that doesn't have a 4-year degree. I only have a 2-year degree. And so we're going around the room, giving our backgrounds, and I learned everybody at the table has a degree. It's a 4-year degree except for myself. So of course I'm getting my heights, my senses are getting heightened. I'm like, okay, you know what? I may not have the degree, but I have the passion. And so therefore I'm just gonna give you all I got. And we had to do fireside chat, like interviews with each VP and the CIO. So we had like 10-minute to 15-minute times with each of them while going. So that started at 4 p.m. and I didn't leave CAS until almost 8 o'clock. So that right there was probably one of those times where I was like, okay, I don't meet all the credentials, but I'm gonna go for it and give the best that I have anyway. The next day I got a call from CAS when I was originally prepared to hear from them till Friday to let me know that I got the position. So even when just applying for the position, I saw the 4-year degree was one of the requirements. And I asked Erica if this is going to be a problem. She said, just go for it anyway. So I say one of the things to overcome that fear where you see that you may not meet 90%. For us females, we like to have all the check marks checked off the box. If we don't meet all the requirements, but you could be possibly a good fit for the position, go for it anyway. The more you do that, the more comfortable you get used to going after positions that may not meet, or you think you may not meet the standards for. So you have to get into that habit of just trying. If you get turned down, okay, you learn from that experience, but don't let that stop you from trying again.
So the old adage, fake it till you make it.
I call it faith it. I say faith it till you make it. Have the faith enough to, to do it until you make it. That's
solid. So you just wrapped up. So the program you got hired on at CAS was kind of a leadership development, right? So you had an opportunity over the course of 12 months, a little bit longer, to work in multiple functions within the organization, and then really see where you're going to be a best fit, right? Which is a perfect scenario for somebody to get into the space. But you just, congratulations to you. Just took your full-time job on the cybersecurity team, which is awesome. So the world is your oyster at this point, right? Do you look back and look in the mirror from time to time and think, man, I got here, I did it, and what things would you say to those that would be, embarking on this journey? What advice would you give to them, right? To think back where you were, when you started with us, and I'll be honest, you came from a job you didn't love, right? And then you came and worked for us and we said, you own this, here you go, here's a task. And you're like, hold on, what?
Yeah.
Owning projects and owning things is a very different skill set when you're used to just, if you're coming from a world where it's very task oriented, now you're walking into a world where you've got to problem solve, sequentially think through steps and process, right? That takes some time to work on. I mean, I'm still getting good at it, right? And I'm not by no means great. But that's really where the cybersecurity world is, right? At some point you move beyond looking at logs and sheets and you start thinking of projects and what you're owning and building out different task orders. All that in mind, what advice would you give to somebody, looking back where they're starting that helps you get to where you're at now?
I read something funny this morning. It says, welcome to cybersecurity, where you're always learning something new, but realizing that you know nothing. There's always something more to learn. You have to have the passion to learn in this environment. And that's where cybersecurity has to become something you actually enjoy, because there's always something that you're going to be learning. There's always something new. There's always going to be a new attack. There's always going to be a new way to protect. You have to have that passion of learning and just perseverance. My pathway still ended up being 4 years, you know, to get to this position. What a college student would go through, I went through with real life experiences. That was just the way for me to get into this field. And then that's another thing I tell people when I talk to them: you got to do what's best for you. If you feel that the 4-year degree is the best way you can learn this, then go for it. If you feel that you need to get that more hands-on experience and just throw me into the fire type of thing, then go for it. Try to find internships, apprenticeships, boot camps, things to get your hands dirty with so you can get into the field and learn these things and get more custom. But you have to do what's best for you. So find that route. I started off with going back to school for cybersecurity with STLCC, but the way the program was built, it just wasn't working for me. And that's when I found you guys. Once again, I just took a leap of faith because I didn't meet the initial requirements for CyberUp. It was like 18 to 25. I was older. You have to have a certain income. I made more. You know, you had to meet the certain test requirements, which I did. But it was something I knew that would probably be better for me and end up working out. So having that passion to learn, having that why, as where we started off in the beginning, to carry you through the trials and tribulations of the journey, and then just doing what's best for you, finding that right niche that you excel in, and then working that the best of your capabilities.
So one thing you said in there, maybe you didn't say it this way, but it really comes down to hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've all read the articles. Everybody sees the news, right? I mean, we just had a ridiculously large breach in the past week, right? So I know oftentimes for us, people will see an article, right? And they'll see the prospect of the space, and then they see how much money there is that they can make in this job, and which there is, right? Money comes. Like, that's the confidence. Like, you work it, money will come to you, but it's going to require some effort and hard work in that. But to think that you're going to hit an easy street and not continue to learn really is false.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times we'll find that people will see those articles, they'll hop in the internets, right? They'll start doing a Google search, they'll find a way to get a job, and then they sign up for a program, and then they start doing it, and then they realize this is kind of hard. Or life happens, right? Life happens for everybody. My kids, graduations and parties and things, and, like, you know, it becomes on a priority list lower than it probably needs to be, and they're not putting that first. And then they kind of they lose sight of the end game for it, and that part becomes really hard. What I know is, you know, we've you know, lots of lessons learned in how to work and coach people and do this, but if you follow the process, right, or you follow just, you know, obtaining some skills, the networking, the mentoring, the professional development of LinkedIn's and resumes, and really polishing yourself and putting yourself out there, the program works, right? Like, that's the thing that I know, and that's not just a CyberUp thing, that's a degree thing. And I think I've come to the realization that there's, you know, 10% of people in the world that, you know, have the drive that you just, you know, just articulated really well, that this is the end game that I want to go. So how do you make everybody to get to that 10%? So 10% becomes 40% or 50%. So then we actually move the needle. I hate that phrase, but we move the needle on closing this, you know, perceived skills gap, which I don't think is real. It's a pipeline problem, not necessarily a skills gap. So I'm going to story tell here, because it was something I learned in my time with Jasmine. I learned a lot, right? Like, just as a human, as a parent, as a ridiculously Caucasian male, right? I learned a lot of things from Jasmine over our time together. And there was a moment, I think it was your very first day that you and I spent at Vashon High School.
Yes.
You know, I'm suited up, I got a tie on, we're hanging out with high school kids, and we had a couple tables set up and lots of rotations of high school students. They just kept coming to us. And, like, we've got a cool subject, right? And they all know what doxing is because they play video games and they do silly things, and they all know what, you know, DDoS and all those silly things are, because that's what they do when they play video games. But there was a moment in there that I kind of took a step back for myself and said, holy crap, like, every student gravitated towards you, right? You were a young African-American female that is setting an example for other young students, in particular, like for Vashan, that you set an example for somebody who could aspire to be something like you, which I think that will sit with me for a really long time. And it's important for beyond CyberUp, right, as a country, that we find better representation and equity and equality within hiring across that. So what things, that's a deep question, right? And I don't expect we're going to have a solution, and others can feel free to chime in as well, but like, how do we get to a better spot in equality, right? Representation across the St. Louis and even the country within this sector and industry. What things should we be doing better?
Loaded question. This is
you know
where,
me, like I just attack stuff head on, right? Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like if we as a white dude and I sit here and tap dance around race and equality, I'm not doing anybody any favors. So I'd rather be honest and candid, right? Like it's a thing that we know, and it's not meant to make this all about, the webinar about equality. That's not the case, but like it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. In 5 years of doing this, I can count on two hands how many people of color I've met within the space. Like that's a problem. And I've met thousands of cybersecurity professionals, and I can count the number on two hands. Like that's bad. So like obviously we need to be better. So what advice would you give, or things we should be doing as a sector to be more inclusive?
As a sector, on the company standpoint, we gonna have to be. I'm grateful to be at CAS where we are community focused. But companies will have to go and become more community focused and going into those areas and letting them know that this is an opportunity. I think one of the things that we encountered when I was out in the field going to like Ferguson Middle School and East St. Louis, they didn't know this was an opportunity given to them. So how can we get more people of color into the field if they don't know this is an option? So we have to get out into the field and actually do and let them see that this is an option. And of course, representation matters. I looked up the stats yesterday for the women in cybersecurity. So I think it's about 23%, which is improved from the time I was really keep up to date with it a few years ago. But the people of color are still 20% in a vast field. And I can only imagine what women of color inside the women bracket, what that margin is. So we have to be strategic on how we get that. And then my thing is, it's not just getting the next generation, but I'm also trying to figure out how can we reach the career changers, the ones, because the pipeline is hurting now. We need to get the career changers now in order to start hitting this deficit that we got of 300,000 open cybersecurity jobs in the US alone. So going to the people now that's working in the field, I tell people who are afraid of AI, I said, start learning the programming language. You're thinking AI is going to take your job. Start learning the programming language, because you know what? We're going to need people of color building those tools too. So the programming language won't be racist, because you have that possibility. You have to start targeting the people who weren't happy in their jobs right now, people of color who weren't happy like me, and say, hey, this is an option. These are the skill sets you have that you can roll over into cybersecurity, and we'll be willing to train you up on the rest of the skills. We have to start being more creative and building a bridge between the community now, the generation to come, but also in the corporate world, having that community focus, but also working with HR and say, hey, we got to relax these restrictions, the 4-year degree restrictions, the 3 to 5 years experience for an entry-level position. You're not going to get many people in there, especially if you want people of color who are just now becoming aware that this is a possibility. Being open to take that chance on that person and say, okay, I see the aptitude for them to learn. I'm going to take the chance and see if we can really develop and have this person blossom in our organization. Once you do that, then that person is going to go back to their community and be like, hey, there's an option, there's a way to go. If the community can see that one of theirs succeeded, then the community will rally around and say, okay, this I can actually do, and they'll walk with them. I think we were sitting with Accenture one time, and they was building this program to reach certain places in St. Louis. And I was like, oh, this is all, you know, beautiful and nice and everything else, but how are we going to walk with them if they don't see no one that looks like them? How are we going to reach them? And so we have to have those type of talks where, you know, we build these things, but we're not going to walk with the person through this. This person's journey is going to be just as challenging as mine, or if not harder. So how are we going to cope with those things as life hits them time after time and still give them the encouragement and say, you can do this, you can get through this. I know you're the first of your kind to do this, but if you keep pushing, if you keep, you know, the goal ahead, you can make it. So you have all those different facets of things we could do. And I know a lot of people could probably say more, but those are the things that I think about when I go into the community and say, okay, how can I target this? How can I make that connection to where they get better resources? You know, and being that connector as well. When you do get to this position, don't mind being that funnel or that tool to connect them with different organizations. You know, how can I, you know, be a wraparound support to them? You know, open them up into another gateway of like, okay, you can get this help here, this help there, this help there. You know, thinking of ways how you may not be the solution solver, but you know the solution solver. So making that connection to it. So those are the things that kind of spat off in my head.
Yeah, I know we're kind of finalizing some stuff on our end around with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And as a company, they've very outwardly have made a commitment to be 50-50, right? You know, diversity within their organization. And I think what's really telling about a pledge like that is it allows the entire company to build programs around, you know, how to actually achieve those goals. And it becomes a shared goal from the top down that everybody is part of to have a fair representation across the board. And they're doing things, right? They're exploring apprenticeship. PwC is 100% always required degrees, right? They're a top consulting company in the country. But for them to come out and lead the way for others to follow is huge. And that's opened their eyes to things like apprenticeship and, you know, really look at alternative ways to bring people on and do it. One of my most proud things, and it goes beyond jobs and trainings and certs. When we started this many years ago, right, like representation at meetups was pretty poor. And you were there from the beginning, right? And a lot of the work we did with Accenture, right, which was awesome stuff. Like that changed a lot, right? There was much more representation at things like SDL Cyber and OWASP meetups and, you know, people coming out because we were doing outreach into the urban leagues of the world and beyond housing and saying, hey, like these are things, like get out there, start meeting people. You know, that's probably one of my proudest moments in the 5-year, you know, beyond all the other accolades or things we've been able to obtain is just to see better representation at meetups, because I think that makes a huge difference. All right, we'll go on. That's a heavy subject, so we'll move on to something lighter. You know, but it's an important thing. I mean, I really do. You know, and even to the testament of middle school and high school students, right? Like, how are we engaging those students with ongoing things and curriculum or opportunities that they can learn, right? And in absence of the digital divide or access to technology or things like that, which are real, right? Definitely, which are real, connectivity issues in communities. You know, creating programs that can be applied and implemented in those school districts, because if we're talking to students early and often, and then encouraging individuals like yourself to get out, mentor, coach, actively participate, then that reality becomes not like, oh, that's a white person's job, I can't do that, right? Like that's something I've seen somebody who looks like me that does that. I can do that. So, you know, that combo is really, really important. And been fun for us to be part of, right? It's just a small thing. It's been fun to be part of. So, you know, let's fast forward 5 years from now, right? Of course, you're still hanging out with Erica, Cass, and, you know, now you're now CISO of Cass Information Systems. Sorry, Erica. You know, where do you see yourself going the next 4 to 5 years? Like, what's kind of your next step? You know, because there are 45 job functions in this industry, right? Between pen testing and all the things. And, 95% of the people that come into our program all want to be pen testers. They have no idea what pen testing is really until they actually get into it. Now that you're in it, where do you foresee where you want to go? And then what things will you do to try to make sure you get there?
I think my niche is probably going to be like a cybersecurity program manager or cybersecurity something, your project manager. There we go. That's where I'm feeling both of those, project manager merged with cybersecurity, is probably going to become my jam of what's the next thing that I'm going to work towards. Right now I'm ready to just take a break and pause and enjoy this phase in the journey that I just completed. I think that's good to have when you go hard all the time. You need that time to reset. And during the time for reset for me, I always like to plan what's going to be the next phase or how I'm going to implement this next phase. So when I go in, I already got the plan set out. So I have certifications in mind that I'm going to run by Erica just to make sure that it lines up with the mission we also have at CAS, but also start building that portfolio of getting to become a project manager in cybersecurity. I also have some side projects I would like to do, like helping small businesses become cyber secure. I have a lot of small businesses in my circle, but I want to make sure that they are doing the right things to protect themselves in this field. And most of them don't have that knowledge or have those resources. So going to them and making sure everything is set up for them and make sure they're safe. We also know that, it's the small businesses that leaves the big business vulnerable if they have that partnership. So making sure that we're bringing awareness to, at least in my community, these are the things that you need to do to keep your business, cyber safe. So those are the things that I'm looking at within the next 5 years for me. A degree may come in there. I don't know yet. I'll have to look at the programs. I know Dr. Stacy Hollins is at, she is now at Harris Stowe.
Yep.
She was at Maryville. And I know she's building out something there, and I told her to keep me up to breast on what's going on over there. So I may dip and dab in that. We just don't know. I had to sit down and really look how I'm going to get to be project manager in cybersecurity. But that's the big goal. Once you get the big picture in mind, now you got to make the little steps to go towards the big picture. So once I get that recharge and that break for a little while, it's not going to be a long break. Just jump back in and begin to plan.
I mean, you're a month or so into your new role, and so still getting your feet wet, figuring it out, what all those entails. So definitely can appreciate the break for sure, and kind of regrouping and learning what you're doing, and then kind of looking forward to that. I threw into the chat, if you guys have questions for Jasmine. I mean, I could sit here and keep asking questions because I could talk for hours, but if you've got thoughts, I know especially for Eric, as you're jumping into your journey, and others that may be on here that are jumping your journey, feel free to, drop in the chat if you got a question and we can ask and get some answers. Other than your love for cookie cake, right? Of course. When you reflect on your time with us, what is one thing you kind of took away from just your time with CyberUp that you think still carries with you today?
The plaque that you gave me when I left, Lead by Example. I think that's pretty much a synopsis of what I was doing while I was at CyberUp, was leading by example. And that's been the biggest thing. After we did our presentations at Vashon the first day, Roosevelt the next day, I realized how much my presence makes a difference. So therefore, I've been very conscious of how my presence makes a difference in any situation I put myself in or is asked to become a part of. Making sure that my voice makes a difference, making sure that my opinions and my suggestions makes a difference. Being intentional in making a difference, reaching out to the urban leagues and the beyond housings. That was being intentional to making those allies with the Boys and Girls Clubs. I was being intentional about that. And so therefore that mindset came over with me in my journey is being intentional of breaking the barriers and being intentional on being the best example I could possibly be, so I can make it easier for the person that's coming up behind me.
Keisha's saying dress for success.
Yes, I was over there too.
Sometimes I'm good at that, sometimes I'm not. For those who really don't know me, I love words. The English language is amazing, right? There's so many like good words that you can articulate and do. And so there was a point where I was a nerd and made little plaques for everybody. And it's really kind of gleaned in on, those personality traits, whether it's owning it, leading by example. Like there's lots of little nuggets that we all have unknowingly, right? That we have some sort of influence or power that we can portray to others. And I think leaning into that skill set is a really important thing. We had Chinese food this weekend. And so my fortune cookie was pretty awesome. It says, change your thoughts and you can change the world, right? And I was like, that's a pretty deep fortune cookie, but it's one of those things that like, we have a tendency, back to the confidence gap and thinking, man, this is hard, I can't do it. Thinking, man, I'm going to tackle this and I'm going to go and I'm going to knock it out and get to where I want to be. Like that's changing my thoughts. And so that's easier said than done, obviously, for a lot of folks, myself included, because there's a lot of doubt that comes into it. Anybody have any questions? I mean, it was asked, where does CyberUp practice? We are based in St. Louis, but our apprenticeship program is a national apprenticeship program. So we can be, easy for me to say, in any state. We have found over the last year and a half that in order for us to be really, really successful is that we have to find really smart people, right? The common denominator in this is how do we find hundreds of Jasmines and Erics to put into roles at, organizations like CAS, where that person could be highly motivated and really be successful. And for us to be able to say we can train all of those folks is not right? So we have to be strategic in partnerships with organizations like Harris Stowe or Webster or Maryville or Fontbonne or even boot camps who are providing people with skills and then just finding the balance and connecting them to apprenticeship programs. So that's really been our secret sauce over the last couple of years, is finding partners who have smart people, and then us leaning into being the apprenticeship expert and really helping navigate employers to do apprenticeship, right? And so we can do that anywhere.
So I know Keisha asked the question about, am I mentoring right now? I am mentoring. I'm actually got one mentee that's about to graduate high school and go into the military. So I'm excited about that. She's going to be, her focus is going to be cybersecurity. And yes, Connection to Success was a good partner for us as well as Dress to Success. That was a good organization that we partnered with.
Yeah, we actually just hired one of our original kind of pre-apprenticeship candidates, Kiana Campbell, who starts in 2 weeks. So I'm pretty excited.
Connection to Success?
She did go through Connections with us. She was our very first ITF class. She's awesome. I'm really excited you're on the staff. I mean, that's our biggest challenge is as we grow and find more smart people is how do we fully support everybody? And we needed to commit a full-time resource to that. So we had that with Jasmine for a long time, and then we didn't have it for a little while. So it's something we're excited to be able to bring back and really lean in and help coach and get everybody ready, because and to work through the confidence gap is real. Like it really is a thing. I could ramble story after story of just examples of people in the class, of students in class, and then I'll even equate it to high school students, right? We had a summer camp at Rankin 3 years ago, and we had about 125 kids come, right? 30 kids were super excited to be there. Another 50 kids, wanted to be there, but it wasn't cool to be there. So they didn't fully engage because they didn't want to get made fun of for being interested in it, right? Because then they would be nerds or whatever. And then the other 30 they didn't want to be there. Right. So it became this interesting dynamic to how do you fully wrap around and engage students and kind of work them into this, like, this is a really cool thing that you could do. And then, you know, hopefully early on in that sequence, whether it be a class or a camp, and that the opportunity to learn doesn't pass them. And then when they, because you know, the subject matter gets more and more complicated as you go. So if you miss the first couple of days, like, you've missed the core fundamental building blocks. So it's hard to learn, you know, at the tail end. So, you know, it's important to be kind of vested into it on day one. We are a DO registered apprenticeship program. That was a question. And then how many companies do we work with in St. Louis? I harass a lot of employers, to include Mr. Stafford and Erica and lots of companies. I'm a persistent. I'm persistent. I won't say I'm a nuisance. And then we were able to bring a new person on full time who is, that's their full time role, is to help kind of manage and navigate those company relationships, because it was moving beyond just my capacity to do everything that is required of a nonprofit and, you know, sell apprenticeship. My last question. We have 8 minutes left. Real quick, Jay Rossman, our website's wecyberup.org. There's lots of information on there about our apprenticeship program. Your timing's good because we actually have an info session in the next like week or two for our next wave. So you can hop on and sign up for that. Perfect.
Hey, Tony, let me interject real quick before we run out of time.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Stafford. I work over at Worldwide Technology. Been in this space for a long time, 20 plus, 30 plus years. Started out in the Air Force. But what I wanted to say was, before CyberUp became CyberUp, it was another name. What was that name, Tony?
Midwest Cyber Center.
There you go, Midwest Cyber Center. And so looking at Jasmine's journey, I think it was very pivotal when she got involved with Midwest Cyber Center, now CyberUp. And so I've known Jasmine because her and my daughters are friends. And so watching her career, her journey was quite exciting, and I'm very proud of her. But I saw it was very pivotal when she got involved then, because that really thrusted her down this journey. And now we see her at CAS and doing great things. So I just wanted to kind of interject my proud of what she's been doing and where she's going.
I mean, on a human level, I'll echo what Eric said. I think I started Jasmine's one of my favorite humans, right? And it's been so amazing to see from when she started with us as an apprentice candidate to working for us, and to see her just grow as a person, right? Beyond just a person, but into a role model and a leader, and then get to where she's at within CAS. And really, the world is your oyster at this point. As you go forward, you're going to have lots of opportunities. But those are big shoes to fill, right? And you've got lots of things that you can set the stage for others. You have opportunities for your own personal, professional development. There's so many things there. And, and I'm proud that we were part of that journey, right? And, obviously, we hope to have that level of success with everybody who comes through our doors, and really, kind of coach that. The thing that I would say was indicative, or really was helpful, is that Jasmine was open and listened and took the coaching, right? And it's not that, we're giving you advice because we just want to arbitrarily give you advice. We've talked to a lot of people, employers, and know what industries and companies are looking for. So we've been there, done that, got the t-shirt kind of thing, right? So if you trust the system and the process, and you go through everything and take it seriously and work hard, right? You can get to where we all want to be, which is, having that job, that role, and really some upward mobility within it.
Hey, Tony, can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just want to applaud you all for kind of bringing Jasmine back to talk about her success and her journey. There's everyone that I know, and I've been in this for over 20 years, has a different pathway into this industry. And I think, you know, Jasmine's story and the things that she's brought along with her, with the experiences that she's had, the ability to communicate, to work with people, you know, to document and to, you know, research, like those are key skills that aid very well in our industry. Of course, there's always something to learn. There's always the more technical hands-on systems, tools, understanding rules and firewalls and those types of things that can be taught. But as a person, you know, I personally want anyone that listens to this or hears this story to know that there is a place for you in cyber. I'm pretty sure you have skills that we could use. So I think that, you know, when I have conversations about the pipeline gap, because it really is, it's people changing their perspective on what's possible. And so I'm so excited that Jasmine is with Cass and she's on the team. She's great to work with. And we really, really are happy that we connected. And CyberUp, I love what you guys are doing. Please continue to do that so we can get more great folks in the industry.
Thank you. Give me a cheer a little bit. No, I think what's crazy is, right, like Erica's awesome. Eric is awesome. And they both have been in the industry, you know, they said what, 20 plus years. Oddly enough, there wasn't a cybersecurity degree when they started, right? There were computer science degrees, but there wasn't this fast track pathway or boot camps that existed at the way they are right now to get into the space. They started oftentimes in help desk roles and worked their way up a food chain and you know, eventually honed in on some skills. The core of that was they spent time of their own to continue to learn and grow and get into where they're at, right? It wasn't this get a 4-year degree, get a $65,000 a year cybersecurity job, and I'm going to be a CISO in 5 years, right? Like maybe we get there in 5 or 10 years, but the very current state of it is right now, I know we get lots and lots of emails and contacts from students who are graduating with degrees that are still struggling to get that first job because they have a piece of paper, but they can't articulate the things that they could do from a piece of paper. And that's not negating college degrees, right? They're an important part. They help you get a foot in the door and provide upward mobility. But finding the skill set, the networking, the mentoring is still core to anything, whatever pathway you choose to get your skills. So with 2 minutes left, what final parting words of wisdom, Jasmine, would you provide for somebody who's listening to this and says, man, I want to be Jasmine when I grow up? You know, what things would you say to them, you know, that they should start doing today?
Well, be yourself first. What can you do today? Start the learning journey. You know, go out there and Google, YouTube. It's a big resource. Find different paths and avenues. There are so many resources I could list. You know, networking, yes. Going online and doing the work yourself, though, is another big thing. When I was out talking to people, they were more intrigued when I could say I read up on this article, or I was playing around with VMware on my machine, or, you know, getting your hands and start playing, you know, with things little by little. Start doing that now, and always be on the hunt for opportunities, even if it is volunteer work, or, you know, you take an internship that's not paid to get your hands on the technical side. That's why I tell college students right now, while they're getting a degree, find some internship to get your technical side, the experience, start and get that experience level up, because that's huge in cybersecurity, getting that experience along with the theory. Coupled together. So finding those ways where you can get in and do it, even if that means going to a local elementary school or high school and be like, hey, I'm a student at such and such university. Can I help with your IT team this summer? Or, you know, come in this fall, something, get creative with your learning journey in order to make yourself more valuable in the field. So when you come to the organizations, when they're looking at your resume, they're saying, oh, you did this, oh, you did that. You know, it's not just the classes you took. It's like, oh, you actually built this. Oh, you actually helped this school. Oh, you did such and such. So that's what I would tell students, is get that learning process going and find your ways to get your hands on the tools and build something.
That's solid advice. the space doesn't afford, you know, if I code, GitHub is a great place for me to highlight my work because I can code and drop my code. Cybersecurity or InfoSec is much harder to like show or demonstrate a skill set. And the only way to do that is by capture the flags, breaking things, building things, having the ability to articulate the things you're building and breaking, you know, and you get those opportunities either on your own, hop on Reddit as a friend, right? Hop on Reddit, find things, find what you're doing and like really hone in on it. There was just a massive breach. Figure it out. Where did it come from? Where did it go? How was it implemented, right? Like those are things that are important that you could do. Don't go run it. You might, you know, have a system, you might do some really bad things and respin it, you know, but, you know, find ways to put that in a safe environment and early test. But I appreciate everybody for joining us today. Jasmine, as always, it's a pleasure. You know, I love you to death. I appreciate you joining us today. And we'll get this up on YouTube and we'll post it on the socials today. So thanks everybody for joining. My apologies for the beginning where people were coming in and doing crazy things. That was a lesson learned. I posted on socials and I think people just like hopped on Twitter and were trying to like squat and do things. I was like, oh my gosh, all right, let's just mute and report all those folks. But lesson learned for me within the old Zoom. That was my first experience of Zoom squatting. So it made me laugh a little bit, honestly, but it was you know, a little disruptive. But everybody have a great day.
Tony, take some time maybe with the platform. I think you could set it up so that by default, when people join, they automatically unmute.
Yes, I think I wound up having it where I was just letting everybody in, you know, it was like,
Gotcha.
it, and so it was one of those things.
All right, no problem.